senior cost estimator, so he'll do that at a standard senior cost estimator billing rate. Then he'll also fill the role of principal in charge, providing monthly quality control over the entire project. As that quality control process, he will not be charging for his time. So that's pretty much my report and process. I then took the agreement, sent it off to them with the changes in it, also sent it to the city attorney to make sure I had the wording correct. City attorney reviewed it and approved it. They reviewed and approved it, and I believe signed the copies and sent them back. I haven't seen those yet, but I believe this. Teresa, do you have those signed copies? Okay, I'll have to check. But and with that, I'll conclude. And I'd already alerted the 3 ad hoc committee members and asked them if they'd be kind enough to share their input as well.
Thank you, Gordon. That was a very good summary. Just to recap, there were 8 applicants. We narrowed it down to 3. We were pretty unanimous in our decision. And when we interviewed them, I think we all kind of rejuggled, our estimation of these groups, and I think that was a very fair and accurate, appraisal in terms of, we came in preconceived thinking certain groups were on top, and then we met them, and the more they talked, and talked about their expertise, we realized that we kind of regrouped it. And we were pretty unanimous in the final decision. I think the issue is the scheduling of this. Not giving the rest of the, CCAC time to digest this. And perhaps I was thinking in hindsight, maybe even meeting the team, the team that we had recommended, and having them come forth and make a presentation, or not even a presentation, but to introduce themselves, to, develop a comfort level. So this is they're taking a big role in this. They're pretty much managing this project. We're entrusting them to control this. And without everybody's acknowledgement, I think that there's a lot of questions, not only with the contract, but who are they? There's just 3 of us acknowledging them. And I think there really needs to be buy-in by everybody. And the rest of you can speak for yourself. But so then the question comes down to scheduling. We're pushing this for the July council meeting. And, I've been asked by people, why? Why is it so important to meet this July council meeting when, many of us, those who haven't met the people, would like to see them? So that's something that we have to answer as a group. What's going on with the schedule? What's driving it? And this is what I told Steve just a little while ago. We need to start looking at the schedule more, more critically, and make sure that there's built-in mechanisms for inclusiveness for everybody, not only the CCAC, but the town. So, I think maybe that's some of the issue. But, I can say without a doubt that as we interviewed these 3 groups, we were pretty unanimous with our selection. I mean, I can say that I don't think a week or a month would have changed our decision making. But I can see where people who haven't met them, who haven't seen the contract, and we haven't seen the contract, we don't know what you finally negotiated, would feel uncomfortable with this.
Let me ask a clarifying question. Is this the same scope that we worked on together previously? It's identical, right?
It is.
Plus the
It is identical, except for approximately 20 additional tasks.
You added tasks.
Added because in their proposal they were very specific with we will do the following, we will do the following, and so not wishing to let them off the hook on any of those, and seeing that some of them were good. For example, one of the things that I was very pleased that they identified is the public outreach effort, which I had envisioned similar to the master plan as happening up front. They said, no, it's all the way through. All of the people, and I think Christine will appreciate this, all the people living in the vicinity of this project need to have frequent communication from the team as to what's happening. is there gonna be a large crane showing up on a
Yeah.
particular day, when, what kind of noise will be happening of something? Is it dusty and do we have to come clean your windows? So, those kinds of things which they proposed, and commissioning of a building, making sure they operate the systems appropriately. Those kinds of things were added, but other than that, so I took the RFP, duplicated it,
Yeah, right.
and then added to it.
And the RFP we saw before improved.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
So just to
Yeah.
follow up from what Rose was saying, if I may.
yeah,
So I thought the process went very well. I was the one person that preferred another firm, but we talked about it and we discussed the pros and cons, and I changed my mind. I thought that the firm we ultimately selected, when we listened to the observations from the participants, was in fact the better firm for us. So I totally concur that the process was well thought through. It was speedy. But I think we arrived at the right decision. We've got the right firm. And in terms of the speed, I think when we last met as a committee, we talked about the speed that we would need to move at for this project management selection. It's essential to get to where we all want to get to, which is getting an architect on board, getting a design underway. We can't do that until we've got a project management firm assisting us. The other point that I wanted to make is that you made a good point, Steve, which is that this project manager, and here I would maybe not quite so much in agreement with Rose. Rose feels they should come in. I don't think that's what we agreed last time. What we agreed was that this project management firm primarily is an adjunct to the staff. The staff has to be the ones that are really happy with this firm. And we need to be involved with the selection. And the subcommittee was involved with the selection, but primarily, this is a consultant that's assisting the staff. The staff needs to be the ones that are really happy.
They're like an outsourced staff person.
Yeah.
that was we had a long conversation last time about this for the PM versus the architect.
Yeah.
They're very different
We
selections.
all want to be
That-
involved with the
that-
selection of the architect.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't recall that conversation because I wasn't here at the last meeting, so.
But it did come up, Rose,
Okay.
and there were big feelings about it. And then everyone got comfortable. It was why doesn't this have to come back to the whole CCAC?
Right,
And it was that this is outsourced labor for the city, like hiring a city attorney or anybody else.
That's
And
right.
so and then Phil, you're gonna get your turn, but what I'm hearing here is there's a selection, there's a budget, and there's a contract. And there's selection, scope, budget, and contract. Selection and scope, we care a lot about. We care a lot about budget. The contract, I view, is not our problem. It's not what we're good at. It's not what we do. So, but that's how it's shaped up in my head. So there's those four things. And the CCAC did authorize subcommittee to pick with staff who they liked. And then this coming back was just meant to be a clearinghouse for, here's how we feel about it. Is there any reason not to go ahead? So,
But if I can just
Yeah.
add, I think the other thing that's important is in comparison to when we made the decision around HMC, it's different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were all very involved in that process with HMC. Everybody interviewed, or were there for a lot of interviews. So we really we saw them, and we knew them before they were hired. I think that will be the process with the architect, but
correct.
this is
Yeah,
different.
that's right, yeah. Phil, did you want to add anything as a subcommittee member? Is that all?
I think we got all the proposals on Thursday and had the weekend to devour all the proposals. I read them 3 different times, of course. And they had a matrix, some used and some didn't, but when we got through with the matrix, we pretty much had consensus of the top 3. On the Monday that we met with them, we met, first of all, we met MAC 5, and they were the first ones on board. As it turns out, they were the most impressive. They talked a lot about what we thought we ought to have in the way scheduled, budget-driven management, and that's exactly what they said they do. Budget, 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 schedule, 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 and they stuck with it. They didn't talk about salesmanship, they didn't talk about how good they were with other things. They talked about this proposal and had an excellent schedule lined out on how to do this, along with what they proposed was, we thought, at the time, the lowest hours, although only the hours were mentioned in 2 different proposals. The other 3 came in line after that. We asked the same questions. Griffin was next and presented to us. I think all of us felt the same way. Great salesman, but that was about as deep as it went. The third group was consolidated, and they had a good proposal with a 4-person team, not nearly as strong as MAC 5. And at the end of that 3 hours or so, we got together and talked about it, and almost unanimously, it was unanimously at the end, came up with MAC 5. I think they are an excellent choice. The guy that's the most impressive is Paul Beamer, who is their architect on board, and he proposes to work with the selected architect on constructability and square footage. And as we got into that, none of the rest of them really said much about that. So this guy Beamer he's not the principal, but he's sure going to be a key person in the whole thing. And that was part of my reason for voting for him.
Okay, so why don't we open this now to discussion? And there's only a few of us that weren't in that, there's 1, 2, 3 of us that weren't in it, but you guys are welcome to discuss as well. Does anybody want to ask questions, talk more about it?
I think the only thing, just to pick up on what Phil said, is the cost of it. I mean, it is a shocking number when you first see it. But this is a very expensive project. We're talking, as a minimum, $32 million, and we all anticipate, hope, that we'll be able to spend more than that on some of the additional features. And when you look at the cost that was in the original proposal, the original estimate was over $900,000 for project management services. So we're actually below that number. And when you think about it in terms of the scope that the project manager
And that's
will be
the clarification, that's the budget, the final budget that was a
Yeah.
$32 million
Right,
project.
that's what the
Major.
32 million.
Okay, HMC, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I should have clarified.
No, thank you, that.
So we're lower than that number. And the other thing to point out is that this project management role is involved not just with construction management, it's managing all of the various consultants, all of the activities. They're involved in just about everything except maybe for legal. But other than that, they're involved with absolutely everything. So it's not just the construction portion of 20-some million, it's the entire project of maybe 30 million. So when you look at it on a percentage basis, it's less than 3%, which is the sort of number that I originally thought that it should be. So although it is when you first look at it, it's a high number. In fact, I think it's very reasonable. So that's the comment I want to make about the cost.
And you're talking about over a period of, 3 years? We're not talking about 1 year. I think everybody just thinks, oh, 9, this number is over 1 year. But it's over a 3-year period, and you think about the manpower, that's about 2 people perhaps. The staff back at the base office, the supporting staff, getting schedules out for us, getting estimates out for us. There's a lot of backup to this. So, I agree, with Clive. It's shocking at first, but I think when you think about it, spread out over a 3-year period per man hour, it makes sense. And I can tell you that the other groups that we interviewed, there was a range, some less, some way, way, way over. And this happened to hit right on target in terms of what Phil said, what they wanted to do. It was based, it's a budget-driven project. They got it. They really got that. And I think that the people that they proposed, if we can get them, I think we are going to be a very big asset to the team. And Steve, when you get a good project manager, it can save you money on the project.
Yeah.
So,
Gordon, I think you were gonna talk a little bit about how this 890,000 fit, the 896 fits, not just with the HMC budget, which what are these guys called?
HMC.
It was their sub, yeah.
Right.
But how does it, like, for us, private sector
Sure.
folks, it was very expensive. So how should we look at it?
Sure. Well, I did a couple of things. First, I wanted to say, in the role, in the evaluation, I tried to kind of keep myself out of the evaluation process, letting the subcommittee people make the evaluation and the decision, because even though the person would be working with me, I really wanted it to be driven by the subcommittee, which, again, my hat is off to each of you. In terms of the cost, I did a couple of things. I called a couple of developers here in town, just to get an idea of how do they spend, and they said, well, that's our role, you're talking about how we manage budgets and schedules and something like that. So they, it's hard for them to come up with the same number one. Number two, the one person I did talk to said, in terms of percentage, hard to say, but the, $125, $150 an hour, $160 an hour, not uncommon in this role. The last thing two other things. It's very different, and I know we've had the discussion before, and mainly about the difference between the private sector and the public sector. So much of what we do is driven by other law, state law, whatever, and having to keep track of, labor compliance, which was actually one of the things we added, one of the bullet points on their scope. And we have to take low bid. Now, the expression I loved from years ago was the bitterness of poor quality lingers long after the sweetness of low bid. In the private sector, you can pick who you want. You want Cadillac, you pick Cadillac. We tend to get Yugo sometimes, not always. Sometimes it's a solid Ford or Chevy, but
You didn't
can't
do
always
this one.
be.
This was on a bid. This is
No, that's right.
professional services.
Professional services, but the contractor is going to be low
But
bid.
can we focus on this
I am.
pricing for this?
So because of that, there's a lot more effort in project management in the public sector because of the need to do the paperwork, the verification, and the dissemination of information to the public. I mean, in fact, even this report that is to you today has already gone to council, and it's out on the web, so anybody can look at it. So the last thing I'll mention is there's a process in California that was started by the city of Los Angeles, and it involved the 6 largest public agencies in California, cities. So LA, San Jose, Long Beach, San Diego, Oakland, San Francisco. And I participated in that from about 2002 to about 2005, and it continues on. And it's called the California Multi-Agency Benchmarking Process. And it's the best information that I know of for project management. And so I looked it up today, and they've tracked about 2,000 projects since they've started in 2002. And they divide them by types. So there's pipes, there's playgrounds and parks, there's libraries, facilities, whatever. For facilities, they use a project management number over all their facilities, and it's from really small ones to multi-$100-million ones of 13%. Now that includes what is essentially my time, some George would be
Hard
involved
cost or total project cost?
of construction cost.
And, but of total administration,
Yes,
including an allocation for you guys?
correct.
Okay.
So this is not total, obviously, because I'm going to be involved, and
Right.
our number is somewhere in the 1% range. George, the city attorney, will be involved,
Sure.
but Teresa, but those I expect to be kind of de minimis. This project manager, project management firm, is going to be the vast bulk of the effort. So if you set out of the 13% in other agencies, let's say they do 10. Obviously, at 3, as Clive has calculated, they fall well under what one would expect for public agency projects.
Let me go back to our discussion. I'm just gonna go around the table. I think once people want to, okay. Phil, any discussion you'd like to have around this, or?
Well, I just would make a comment that since the council minutes have come out, I've had several phone calls saying, what the heck's going on here? Why are we spending that kind of money? This is what people from the town are saying, why are we doing this? I said, because we're gonna need a project manager to help run this thing. Why can't the town do it? Why can't Gordon do it? There's an exact question. And the council may hear that on Wednesday night. I said, well, It's been underway for a long time, and we think it's gonna save us a lot of money in the long run.
Okay. Christine?
I have no comment. It sounds like a good plan to me. I can't imagine that only one or two people could do what a group of 4 or 6 could do. And it's huge, huge project.
Claude?
No, I think,
You said you'd be-
no additional comments.
Rose?
No, I agree with Bill. It's just it's labor intensive. We don't have the staff. I mean,
Yeah.
if we don't, hire them, we have to supplement it
Right.
here.
Part-time people
You know,
here,
what's
one or
the
the other.
difference?
Right.
And I know it's surprising to some people who aren't familiar with the trade, but, it's a necessity. And this group is very budget driven. We like that.
Right.
Projects don't run themselves.
They don't run them,
So-
there's a lot of paperwork.
Two things. I think people who have questions about it, we should absolutely welcome. And we should welcome their questions. I want them to get engaged with this. We need to get people engaged, and this is the right thing to do. I have absolutely no doubt about it.
You
But-
may get more than you want, but.
It's okay. I'll take it on. I mean, I bargained for that. So, I think, I've talked to a lot of people at Portola Valley that were involved in their project. They used internal staff to manage it. And in their summary, the number one problem that they had in their whole project was it took staff away from being able to do other things because it's such a demanding job. And we don't have that, if we did that, then we would lose Mike and Gordon on all the other things that we're doing. And we're doing serious things with respect to El Camino and bicycle paths and a series of other things that are really important for the town in terms of our infrastructure. So I don't have any doubt that this is the right thing, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. Secondly, I think that if you look at it on a cost basis, I think we've been very smart in how we've managed it, because I think our costs, assuming that we can raise the money that we need to raise, are only going to go up. And this is a fixed bid. This is not variable based on the fact if we raise $35 million and we have a $45 million project here, we're still going to be paying, then it's going to end up at 2% rather than 3%. So I think that this has been managed properly.
Okay, so I'm gonna step out of chair and have an opinion. So, number one, I think we should reword Gordon's report that we were gonna approve to talk about what we actually can approve. So, we discussed what that might mean. I think it's probably gonna say that we support selection out of MAC 5, that the scope was approved by us, and there have been additional items made to it because they offered to do things, which we like.
By the way, there were a couple of things they didn't necessarily offer, but in discussion, and that Bob,
Yeah,
with his expertise,
You
said,
wordsmith it.
how about da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, okay,
you
sure.
wordsmith it.
Okay.
So we'll be clear what this group has approved as opposed to a contract. Okay. So that selection and scope. Budget, all this group will say is that it fits within the budget that we sent to council.
Consistent with, if that's where we
And then I think the contract, we're not gonna opine on anything. Public perception, I think is where, what we've heard a lot of discussion about in the last 10 minutes. And I apologize, I have not read the council report, so I don't know what it says in there, but the things that I would encourage you guys to think about to be ready for your council meeting are how much will be, is this agreement severable at any time? So you just say, we're done, you stop. We don't have to pay you anymore, it's hourly and you're done. Okay,
It is. It has both suspension and termination.
that's good. Number two is, I'd be ready to answer the question, if this project doesn't go forward and these people who are out there raising money don't raise it, how much does the city get stuck for? So I'd come up with some kind of a number. The money's not gonna, you're not gonna have a real hammered down project probably till the end of 2015 in terms of designs and 100% funded.
2013.
2015, yeah. So how much are you gonna spend in the first,
I think this,
16 months, 18 months. and
So
then-
this-
schematic, right?
Right, well,
So, yeah, through schematic.
Well, this scope takes it all the way through
Right.
moving,
Right.
but
Through
as I said,
schematic,
it's
how
just-
much would you have spent?
Right.
Yeah, we can have.
Because a ton of it's during construction.
we have that number. By the way,
Yeah.
the schedule is to go out to bid next summer.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if I'm a worried, I'm just talking as a citizen, if I'm a worried citizen, and I see $900,000, gee, that's almost $1 million. Holy cow, where's my bankrupt town, we're not bankrupt, where's my town gonna get this money? And what if these highfalutin people who say they're gonna raise it all, there's not gonna be a penny spent from the town, don't show with the dough, what happens? So I'd be ready to answer, here's how much will be incurred prior to when we expect that funding will be done and we'll have an approvable project. And here's how we pay for it, okay? And then, on the actual cost itself, I would encourage you to put it in the context of a typical development fee is 3%, unless you get ground down. It's on hard costs, this has some soft costs in it, so it's not totally apples to apples. But the 13% is confusing, but I would have some real references for why people shouldn't be nervous. I would I would have it easily available, how many hours of work this is for, it's this much, whatever. The big number is the one before you have funding, because after that, who cares? Except the donors will care, so they'll want to know. And then the last one is, why isn't Gordon doing this? I think that you heard the answer around the table is, we have a bare bones staff. We went through massive budget cutting in the last 3 years. We have no slack capability at all, and this project needs to cover its own overhead. And I think that's a perfectly acceptable answer.
Plus, I think one addition to that last point is that what we're getting with this particular firm is a level of expertise that Gordon wouldn't be able to provide from his resources.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say yes or no, because Gordon's a smart guy.
No, I concur with you.
Okay. Okay, so it's not just bandwidth, it's very specific skill set.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as
It's
you
like saying,
also,
why don't you have an architect? Why can't Gordon just scratch this out of a piece of paper?
Why can't you get us an estimate tonight?
and those two other things that were mentioned, separate from time, are, this is a budget-driven, schedule-driven project, so you need a particularly strong project manager. You can't count on the contract. And B, because the construction will be low bid, you really do need a strong project manager. So I think that, to me, I sold me. I get it. But it needs to be in bite-sized. If it's already a staff report, great. If it's not, I would encourage you to,
Well, it's a staff report, but there's an oral presentation.
I would encourage you to think about how to communicate. I don't know, so with that, should we turn to this particular recommended memo and how it gets,
You have one more committee member.
oh, sorry, Paul.
No, I agree with what you said, Steve, but I do think, the more we simplify it in explaining things as far as any potential opposition is concerned, it really helps, especially the comparisons with the percentages. I'm unfamiliar with the percentages. I don't have the experience that you guys do in dealing with these percentages that you're talking about, the 3% for the project management. So I know if I was at the meeting, I would want to explain and have some comparisons ready to make sure it's just laid out. Because the little that I know, I think it's a no-brainer to do it. And to me, it's the writing's on the wall. And I think the three of you just did a great job in evaluating everything and breaking everything down. We have to be ready for the opposition and just explain it as simply as possible. The other question I had for the three of you, and I might have missed something since I was late, is just briefly if I get a thumbnail of what you guys discussed when you saw the final three, just as far as what you talked about briefly.
We had a set of questions that Gordon had outlined so that we would be fair with everybody.
Mhm.
And we just went through and asked everybody these questions in order so that, we could just compare apples to apples. And based on their answers and based on the team that they projected, we evaluated and selected a team based on that. So I think it, and Bill also made a matrix, and, that's what worked for us with, other firms. And it was very clinical almost.
Right, and it seems like it was pretty clear cut once you did all the interviews and stuff. I mean, were you all on the same page from the very beginning after everything was over?
Well, I think originally there were 8 firms.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Gordon, as you mentioned, did not participate in selecting how we ranked the different firms. But he got us all to say, okay, let's throw the names up on the board and who voted for whom. And we all agreed on who the top 4 firms. And we agreed that the 4th was not a strong contender, so we agreed to interview the top 3. There was some disagreement with 5, 6, and 7, 8, but the top 3...
Top 3 were pretty clear cut.
Yeah, it was very clear cut. We interviewed them all, and I think the questions that we had that Gordon had written down for us was useful in terms of having a process to go through. But what we really wanted to do was to get to know these people, how they presented themselves, how they conducted themselves in a meeting, how businesslike were they as opposed to salesmanship. And at the end of that, it was very clear who the best firm was. It was unanimous at the end of the day as to who the best firm was. It was very clear.
Well, to give you an example, when I did the matrix thing, I did not have Mac 5 in the top 3. They were the 4th one, but because the other ones thought it was good, I included them. As it turned out, when we met them, they were head and shoulders over everybody else. Absolutely, no question in my view.
By the way, one of the things I did mention is, following the selection by the team, I did call the references for Mac 5, and they were uniformly good. I mean, they ranged from good to, outstanding, and all of them answered the critical question, would you hire them again? Absolutely.
Okay, so why don't we focus on the specific language in here, is that okay? And what happens, does this go to council? It doesn't, it just goes in the file?
What I'll do is I will take whatever information, I will report it to Mike Kashiwagi, who will be at the meeting on Wednesday night. And he will say, because it says in the staff report, the CCAC, will meet on July 14th, and an oral report of their recommendation will come. So whatever your recommendation is, if you say, yeah, we endorse the scope of work, we da-da-da-da-da, Mike will report that, and George will be there also.
Could since Rick is our liaison, would it make sense for Rick to report on our behalf? Or should somebody else do it?
It's typically a staff role.
It is.
This is in the packet.
Yeah,
So
Mike
I don't know
report
this
already.
exact thing, but the
Pretty close,
content
yes.
is in the packet
Correct.
for Wednesday's council meeting. I don't recall, I don't think it's from the CCAC.
No,
It's from
the
staff.
process
That's
is,
because what
it's
the
one from
role we
staff.
want to have with council, we're in the hat of CCAC, is we're a watchdog group. And staff's going to come in and ask for approval of a contract, and there should be something from us that says, we're okay with this.
Yeah.
And what I don't know is is it too late to submit that, or could it be submitted at the meeting?
No, it can be submitted at the meeting. I mean, I can comment at the meeting that I was
Yeah.
present at the meeting.
And then they have a blessing from us, that this can be doctored up, and maybe include some of those points why we got comfortable with it. Like it's severable and
Steve, Mike already wrote a report. Are you looking at Mike's report or Gordon's report?
Gordon's.
Because the staff
Yeah.
report, the one that's on the web, is to city council
From staff.
from staff.
Not from us,
Right.
This one
not from
I know,
CCAC.
okay.
has the same factual content in terms of the process, but the recommendation was that the CCAC do exactly what you're doing, which is review it, discuss it, talk about it, and then hopefully approve it. And I agree,
Yeah.
you didn't have the actual document in front of you.
So
to
how does
approve.
this alter
So-
Mike's
This,
report?
this one's a little different. With the architect, with the project management firm, and I have to disagree a little bit, the role of the CCAC isn't watchdog. It's advisory on the project, it's engagement, it's involvement, it's designed to get out with the community, that sort of
Yes.
thing.
Right.
But it's not to fact check and double check staff's activities. So we're bringing the project management one before the CCAC only because it's an important role, but it is an ad hoc staff function. and we want your feedback and your comments on it, and that's what we're reporting.
So
to
you'll
council.
report on that?
Yes.
Okay, but when the architect,
Well, that's a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
That's more like the selection of HMC, because that's where we need the
Okay,
CCAC
you guys okay with that?
to
All right.
get out into the community.
So should we just make a motion then, rather than amend this thing, just make a motion?
That's what we're looking for.
Okay. Okay. So, does anybody want to take a shot at it? I'm happy to if nobody else wants to.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the motion would have the following components. CCAC is comfortable with the selection of MAC 5 as the project manager and appreciates that staff included in the scope the items we had requested. And we understand that the contract amount fits within the project budget, which was approved by council. And it fits within industry norms and is not excessive. Does that sound about right?
I'm not
I think
happy
that's
with-
it.
I'm not happy with the comfortable thing, I thought it'd be a little better.
How would you say it?
Say recommends.
Recommends?
Yeah,
It's recommends MAC 5?
yeah.
Okay.
May I suggest another word, confirms?
Confirms.
The ad hoc
Confirms
committee.
staff selection of
Sure.
MAC 5.
Well, it really wasn't staff selection, it was
Yeah.
really the ad hoc committee.
Okay.
We
Well, then
appreciate
we'll just
Gary's
say,
involvement.
then we'll just say we wouldn't confirm our ad hoc committee, we have recommended MAC 5.
Okay, confirm staff recommendation.
Box next.
Is that okay, Phil? Okay, great. So you want to read that backward?
CCAC confirms staff recommendation of MAC 5 as the Civic Center project manager. Appreciates that the scope includes all requested tasks.
Yes, right?
I would say, you appreciate that, I would have put in plus, but that's okay. And that the fee fits within the project budget, industry norms, and is reasonable,
Does that sound
Yeah,
okay?
it's reasonable, particularly.
given the scope of the project.
It's the scope and duration of the project.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
Yeah.